Introduction. Friends, if you're someone who enjoys epic adventures, jaw-dropping mysteries, a touch of supernatural thrill, and a fearless, witty heroine leading the charge, then get ready, because today's video is going to take you on a ride like no other. If you want to watch the super entertaining and action-packed movie The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec in English, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button to show your excitement, and if this is your very first time visiting our channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because we regularly bring you fun and detailed videos about the most unique and exciting films from around the world. Today, we're going to talk about a movie that's not just extraordinary by name, but also by nature. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. This 2010 French film is a one-of-a-kind cinematic experience that mixes fantasy, adventure, comedy, and mystery in the most delightful way. Directed by Luc Besson, the mind behind hits like The Fifth Element and Lucy, this film is based on the beloved French comic book series by Jacques Tardy. So yes, we're dealing with something that already had a strong fan base and rich source material, and the movie does a fantastic job of bringing that world to life. In today's video, we'll be talking about everything you need to know about this movie. What is the story about? Where can you watch it online or on TV? Which OTT platform is currently streaming it, or on which satellite channel it might be airing? Whether you're a die-hard adventure movie fan or just stumbled upon this title and got curious, I'm here to give you all the answers. We'll also explore some really interesting behind-the-scenes details. How the film was made, how the special effects were done, and how the makers recreated the feel of early 20th century Paris, ancient Egyptian tombs, and other stunning locations. From pre-production to filming and then to post-production, we'll trace the entire journey of how this movie was brought to life. We'll talk about the film's budget, how it performed at the box office, and how it was received by critics and viewers alike when it first came out. But wait, there's more. We're going to break down the plot without giving away any spoilers. I'll give you a brief overview of the story and a small review, so you'll know exactly what kind of ride you're in for. Trust me, once you hear what this film is about, a prehistoric pterodactyl flying over Paris, an ancient Egyptian mummy brought back to life, and a fearless woman on a mission to save her sister, you'll want to watch it right away. We'll also take a closer look at the amazing cast who brought these colorful characters to life. Louise Bourgoin plays the lead role of Adele Blanc-Sec, and she delivers a performance full of charm, intelligence, and attitude. We'll talk about her character, the supporting cast, and how each actor fits into the adventurous puzzle that this movie creates. Who plays the mad scientists? Who brings the ancient pharaohs to life? We'll tell you all about that. And of course, no deep dive would be complete without some fascinating trivia and fun facts. Did you know the film used a combination of practical effects and CGI to create the dinosaur scenes? Or that the film stayed remarkably true to the art style and tone of the original comic series? We'll uncover all those nuggets of information that make watching this film even more enjoyable for fans and first-timers alike. So if you're even a little curious about fantasy adventures, magical mysteries, or films with strong unconventional female leads, this movie is absolutely worth your time. Make sure to watch this video till the end because we've got tons of information, interesting observations, and a few personal thoughts that might just make you see this movie in a whole new light. Alright friends, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the world of mummies, monsters, mystery, and one truly extraordinary woman. Let's get started. Alright, friends, let's dive headfirst into the whirlwind that is the Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec, and trust me, this isn't your average point-A to-point B adventure. This movie doesn't just walk through its story. It cartwheels, somersaults, and occasionally rides a pterodactyl straight through it. From the very first scene, it lets you know you're entering a world where the bizarre is perfectly normal, and the impossible is just another day in the life of our heroine. The story kicks off in Paris, in the early 1910s, but this isn't some quiet, nostalgic version of the Belle Époque. No, things get wild right away. A mysterious old scientist with an electric beard and wild eyes, Professor Esperandu, is conducting an experiment using pure thought. Sounds harmless? Think again. He accidentally hatches a dormant pterodactyl egg inside a museum. And when that feathered fossil wakes up, it doesn't just yawn and stretch. It flies right out the window and begins terrorizing Parisian rooftops like it's on a prehistoric vacation. People panic, the press explodes, and the poor Parisian police are left trying to explain how a flying dinosaur is suddenly a public safety concern. While all that chaos unfolds, our real adventure begins in a much drier, sandier setting. Egypt. Enter Adele Blanc-Sec. She's a journalist, an explorer, a one-woman rescue squad, and quite possibly the coolest woman ever to wear a hat. Adele isn't in Egypt to write travel blogs. She's in the middle of ancient ruins, navigating deadly traps, battling mummified curses, and searching for the tomb of a legendary Egyptian physician. Why? Because she believes this long-dead doctor holds the key to saving her sister, Agathe, who lies in a comatose state back home in Paris after a freak accident during a tennis match. Yes. Tennis. Not war. Not plague. Tennis. The film's not interested in melodrama. It thrives on the weird and wonderful. Adele's journey through the tombs feels like an old-school pulp adventure, with giant spikes, hidden doors, and ancient secrets. And what does she do once she finds the mummy? She crates it up like old luggage and brings it back to France. No big deal. Just another day at the office. Back in Paris, the police are still dealing with the airborne dinosaur. Inspector Capone is tearing his hair out trying to solve the mystery, and the city's top officials are blaming everything on Professor Esperanto, who becomes public enemy number one. He's arrested and thrown into prison, and guess what? He's the only one who can help Adele bring her mummy back to life. So now Adele has two problems: revive an ancient Egyptian doctor and break a psychic scientist out of jail. Easy, right? Here's where the story really kicks into high gear. Adele dons disguises, outsmarts guards, and orchestrates a prison break with all the precision of a magician and the sass of a street performer. Every scene with her feels like a mini-play. She's always in control, always 3 steps ahead, and always doing it with a smirk. She succeeds, but in a classic comedic twist, when the mummy is finally revived, it's not the doctor she was hoping for. It's a royal advisor who's polite, eloquent, and rather bemused to find himself in 1910s France. But plot twist. He knows the physician she's looking for and introduces her to a whole council of resurrected mummies. Kings, priests, scholars. All brought back with a bit of old-school Egyptian magic and the power of storytelling. And these mummies aren't your groaning, bandage-dragging clichés. No, they're sophisticated, charming, and oddly supportive. One of them even insists on wearing a top hat. They decide to help Adele, not because of duty or drama, but because they find her courageous and endearing. It's like a dinner party of the undead, and she's the guest of honor. Meanwhile, the pterodactyl saga wraps up in an unexpectedly poetic way. Professor Esperanto bonds with the creature telepathically, showing that this monster is really just a misunderstood creature yanked out of its time. The film plays this subplot with just enough tenderness to give it emotional weight, without ever losing its tongue-in-cheek tone. All the threads, Adele's sister, the mummies, the dinosaur, the bumbling police, the mad scientist, somehow weave together in a final act that feels like controlled chaos. It's not tidy, but it doesn't need to be. The film dances between tones. 1 minute it's pure comedy, the next it's whimsical fantasy, then suddenly it's full-on emotional drama. But it never drags or confuses. It knows what it is, a high-spirited romp through time, science, and mythology. Now, what's especially fun about this movie is how it plays with convention. This isn't a strict 3-act Hollywood structure. The narrative feels like flipping through an old adventure comic. Each chapter is its own little adventure, and the perspective stays firmly on Adele, yet the tone shifts like a story being told around a campfire. There's no deep introspection or philosophical overthinking here. Instead, the emotion comes through character actions. Adele's love for her sister is quiet but fierce. She doesn't deliver teary monologues. She scales pyramids and cheats death. And then, just as you think all is well, the final scenes throw a curveball. The Mummy Council helps Adele revive her sister. Victory, right? Well, not so fast. The movie gives us one last cliffhanger. Adele hops aboard a steamship, only to find herself in yet another exotic and dangerous scenario. The story leaves the door wide open for sequels, teasing that this was only the beginning of her adventures. Sadly, that sequel never came. But in just under 2 hours, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec gives us a globe-trotting genre-bending story that breaks all the rules while laughing at them. It's a film where pterodactyls fly over Paris, mummies give medical advice, and a woman with a pen and a plan outsmarts everyone. Government agents, spiritualists, even the laws of nature. It's not a straight line. It's a mad, beautiful scribble. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Absolutely. Let's turn up the volume and fully immerse ourselves in the eccentric, energetic, and wildly entertaining world of character development in The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. This movie isn't just a showcase of fantastical plots and dazzling visuals. It's a vibrant tapestry of characters that breathe, strut, bumble, and blaze their way through every frame with flair. No one stands still. Everyone is in motion. And every single one of them brings their own flavor to the madness. Let's begin with the star of this unpredictable circus, Adele Blanc-Sec. There's just no one else quite like her. From the moment she appears on screen, she's not introduced so much as unleashed. She's sharp, she's sarcastic, she's daring, and she has no patience for nonsense, unless of course, it's the kind of nonsense she's orchestrating. She's not a sidekick. She's not a damsel. She's the one kicking in the door, writing the story, and deciding what happens next. And while everyone around her is playing checkers, she's busy inventing three-dimensional chess. But what makes Adele so captivating is that she's not simply a parade of clever quips and cleverer escapes. She's fueled by something deeper, grief and guilt tucked quietly behind those wide-brimmed hats and bulletproof confidence. Her sister Agathe lies comatose, frozen in time, and Adele can't let go of the idea that she can fix it. Her obsession with reviving an ancient Egyptian doctor isn't some kooky plot device. It's her desperate way of trying to rewrite the past. She refuses to accept that some things are out of her hands. So she goes on this wild journey not because she's thrill-seeking, though she certainly enjoys the chaos, but because she can't stop. This is how she processes loss. Through action, through danger, through relentless motion. That's the depth that sneaks up on you. Just when you think she's untouchable, the film reminds you she's human. And she never stops moving. She changes disguises like most people change socks. She's a lady one moment, a burglar the next. She bluffs her way into jails, out of police chases, and straight through international borders. She's a master manipulator, yes, but it's never cruel. It's always for something bigger, something noble. Her arc isn't about becoming brave. She already is. It's about peeling back layers, from defiant adventurer to vulnerable sister, from lone wolf to someone who lets others help, even if they happen to be wrapped in 3,000-year-old bandages. Now let's talk about the supporting characters. And here's where the film really shows its genius. Most adventure films would sideline these folks into comic relief or exposition machines. Not here. Each of them, from the cops to the corpses, brings a unique energy. First up, Professor Esperanto, the man who cracks open the pterodactyl egg with nothing but his mind. He's a blend of eccentricity and tranquility, a pacifist in a world of guns and chaos. He doesn't yell, doesn't run. He simply connects. With a creature. With a mind. With a cosmos. He's an anchor in a story that's constantly flying off in a dozen directions. He doesn't transform in the traditional sense, but his presence evolves from mad scientist to misunderstood visionary, and his relationship with the flying beast offers a surprisingly tender subplot about harmony and misplaced fear. Then we have Inspector Capone, the ever-frustrated, perpetually out-of-breath police detective who represents law and order in a world that no longer follows logic. Capone is the bureaucratic foil to Adele's chaos, and watching him try to piece together a case involving a psychic scientist and a flying dinosaur is pure comedy gold. But even Capone isn't a total caricature. He gets it. Eventually. He softens. He adapts. And he provides the perfect contrast that makes Adele's brilliance shine even brighter. But wait. This movie doesn't stop at humans. Oh no. It gives personality to mummies. Yes, actual Egyptian mummies, and not the groaning, moaning horror movie kind. These guys are erudite, witty, and fully adjusted to the Parisian lifestyle in about 10 minutes. They walk out of their sarcophagi like they've been invited to tea, analyze the absurdity of the modern world, and one of them even becomes a spiritual advisor. They aren't scary, they're classy. They add a surreal but oddly comforting presence to the second half of the film. And their willingness to help Adele isn't driven by duty or destiny. They do it because they like her. Because, let's face it, even the undead can see she's got something special. One of the film's most emotionally resonant relationships is the one we hardly see unfold. Adele and her sister Agathe. Agathe spends the entire film unconscious, but her presence looms over every decision Adele makes. It's a bond that doesn't rely on screen time or exposition. It's felt. We see Adele's mask crack when she's alone with Agathe. We see the walls come down. Her sarcasm melts. Her urgency makes sense. It's in those quiet moments, without ancient relics or prehistoric threats, that Adele feels the most real. The dynamic is beautifully one-sided but never empty. It adds stakes to every moment and pulls us closer to Adele's motivations. Even the so-called villains in this story aren't straightforward. The antagonists are more confused than cruel. Misguided bureaucrats, panicked politicians, greedy scholars. They don't carry malice, just a rigid belief in how the world should work. The fun comes in watching that belief get absolutely shattered by talking mummies and telepathic reptiles. None of them are evil. They're just wrong, and they're hilariously punished for it by the universe refusing to make sense. The film's magic is how it uses these characters, not to teach moral lessons or hit dramatic beats, but to build a world where the strange is normal, and the normal is hilariously out of place. The relationships aren't rigid. They shift like the story. Adele goes from lone adventurer to accidental mummy liaison. Capone shifts from pursuer to bewildered ally. The mummies go from relics to dinner guests. And through it all, no one is static. Everyone is reacting, transforming, or at the very least, adjusting to a reality that refuses to play by the rules. What you end up with isn't just a collection of characters. It's a living, breathing ensemble cast that could each star in their own spin-off. You remember them not because of their plot function, but because of their presence. Their quirks. Their looks. Their lines. Their little surprises. So while the story races from Paris to pyramids and back again, it's these characters, alive, dead, undead, and everything in between, who make the journey unforgettable. They don't just support the narrative. They hijack it, bend it, reshape it, and they make it feel like an actual adventure, not just a film. Alright, let's blow the lid off and go even deeper into the wild, witty, and downright theatrical performances that bring the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec to life. This isn't just a film with great actors. It's a film where every performance feels like a carefully chosen ingredient in an eccentric cinematic recipe. From the sharp-tongued heroine to the deadpan bureaucrats and even the ancient, linen-wrapped philosophers, every actor is operating at full capacity. They're not just reading lines. They're inhabiting this wonderfully whimsical world with absolute conviction and a surprising amount of heart. Let's begin again, this time turning the spotlight all the way up on Louise Bourgoin. Her performance is the kind of magic that makes you sit up and think, wait, who is this woman and how is she so effortlessly cool? Bourgoin doesn't just play Adele Blanc-Sec, she channels her. She's like Indiana Jones and Sherlock Holmes rolled into one, but with better fashion sense and way less patience for idiocy. Her timing is razor sharp. She delivers sarcastic zingers with such casual flair it's like she's been doing it her whole life. And then, bam, without warning, she'll flip the emotional switch and deliver a moment of stunning vulnerability that completely disarms you. There's a scene where she's sitting beside her comatose sister, and the way she softens, even in silence, is breathtaking. Her eyes go from storm to sorrow in a heartbeat, and suddenly you remember that behind all the explosions and mayhem is a woman driven by grief and love. But here's the real kicker. Bourgoin makes it all look easy. Whether she's hopping trains, outwitting bumbling cops, or sweet-talking ancient mummies, she moves through the story with a confidence that makes you want to follow her anywhere. She's not trying to impress you. She doesn't need to. She owns every room, every scene, every frame. She's the kind of lead who could be dropped into any genre and still dominate the screen. That's range, and that's star power. Now swing the camera over to Gilles Lellouche as Inspector Capone. This guy? He's having the time of his life. Lellouche knows exactly what this role is. The exasperated everyman tossed into a world that's gone completely off the rails. But instead of playing him like a fool, Lellouche gives Capone real depth. His confusion isn't just for laughs. It's grounded in something real. He wants to do his job. He wants to understand. He just happens to be chasing a woman who's 10 steps ahead, dodging a psychic pterodactyl and making friends with 3,000-year-old corpses. Lellouche's physical comedy is spot on. Every flinch, every double take, every frustrated grunt is pitch perfect. But even better, he never overplays it. He keeps Capone grounded, human, and surprisingly relatable. And then there's Jackie Nersession as Professor Esperandu. If Adele is the dynamite, he's the incense. Calm, mystical, and always oddly cheerful, Esperandu isn't your typical mad scientist. Nersession gives him this ethereal, almost saint-like vibe, which makes his scenes feel dreamlike in the best way. He's got this mellow confidence that makes you believe he can psychically hatch a prehistoric egg without breaking a sweat. You never doubt him, even when he's saying things that would sound completely ridiculous coming from anyone else. He brings a sense of peace to the madness. And when he interacts with the resurrected pterodactyl, yes, that's a sentence we're using, there's genuine warmth in his voice. It's like watching a parent with a very large, very confused pet bird. Somehow he makes it touching. Mathieu Amalric, hidden beneath layers of villainous makeup, plays Gilles with all the subtlety of a cackling ghost in a gothic novel, and it works. He's got this sinister charisma, like he just stepped out of a shadowy backroom in a different movie and decided to liven things up a bit. Amalric doesn't hold back, and that's the genius of it. He lets himself go. Every snarl, every grimace, every melodramatic outburst is crafted to entertain. He's like a Bond villain who wandered into a Tintin comic. He understands the assignment perfectly. Be absurd, be menacing, and have a blast doing it. The supporting cast is an ensemble of delightful oddballs, and every single one of them seems to know exactly what kind of story they're in. There's Jean-Paul Rouve as the wildly incompetent doctor, delivering lines like he's performing for a slightly inebriated audience at a 1920s cabaret. There's Laurent Lafitte playing a bureaucrat who seems personally offended by every moment of chaos, like a man who just wants to file his paperwork but keeps getting interrupted by resurrected royalty. And speaking of royalty, the mummies. What a joy! These aren't your typical groaning horror movie mummies. These are proper gentlemen. One of them gives historical critiques. Another one offers life advice. And all of them, played by actors who somehow manage to convey elegance and wit beneath heavy costume and makeup, are funny, dignified, and completely unforgettable. Even minor characters, like the prison guards, the museum curators, the uptight politicians, they all have their own little moment to shine. The casting is so thoughtful that no one feels generic. Everyone seems to have stepped out of their own peculiar storyline and wandered into Adele's for a few chaotic minutes. That's the mark of a film that knows how to use its ensemble. Not just to fill space, but to build a living, breathing world full of misfits, geniuses, fools, and the occasional undead philosopher. The performances across the board are cohesive, too. No one is in a different tone. They're all dialed into the same frequency, that perfect sweet spot between deadpan absurdity and genuine emotion. They keep the audience tethered, even when the story takes wild turns. And best of all, they seem to be having fun. You can feel it radiating off the screen. This cast isn't trudging through their scenes, they're relishing them. Whether they're delivering snappy one-liners, sprinting through catacombs, or exchanging glances with animated reptiles, they do it with the kind of enthusiasm that's infectious. So in this film, performances aren't just a vehicle for the story. They are the story. They're the color, the heartbeat, the chaotic soul of the adventure. And from Louise Bourgoin's magnetic lead to the ensemble of lovable lunatics around her, this cast doesn't just perform, they ignite. Let's talk direction, because the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec doesn't just happen. It's crafted, curated, and conjured into existence by none other than Luc Besson, a filmmaker who seems to have looked at the laws of conventional cinema and said, "Thanks, but no thanks." Besson directs this film like a magician pulling silk scarves out of an endlessly deep top hat. It's dazzling, weird, stylish, and completely in love with its own fantastical possibilities. This isn't just a period adventure film. It's a comic book brought to life, a fever dream with impeccable framing, and a love letter to pulp storytelling with a distinctly European flair. The tone Besson sets is whimsical but not weightless, sharp-edged but never mean-spirited. From the very first frame, he's winking at the audience. He wants you to know you're in for something unapologetically imaginative. And once you're in, he's not letting you out until you've seen mummies debating politics, a psychic dinosaur flapping over rooftops, and a heroine who could outwit Sherlock Holmes before breakfast. He orchestrates it all with a kind of gleeful precision. The mood swings from slapstick to suspense to surreal fantasy without ever feeling jarring. And that's because Besson knows exactly how to manage tone. He's like a conductor guiding a very eccentric orchestra, making sure every bizarre instrument hits the right note at the right time. The pacing of the film? Oh, it gallops. This isn't a story that dawdles or gets bogged down in exposition. Besson keeps the story moving like a steam train with a rocket booster strapped to the back. He doesn't just trust the audience to keep up. He expects it. The result is a kind of breathless energy that suits Adele's character perfectly. She doesn't wait around, and neither does the film. We jump from tombs to laboratories to Parisian jail cells in a matter of minutes, but it never feels chaotic. It feels like a high-speed tour through a very elaborate storybook, and every page has something visually delightful to offer. Speaking of visuals, Besson's stylistic flair is absolutely everywhere. His shot composition is a feast for the eyes. There's symmetry where you least expect it. There are wide shots that make the most mundane Parisian streets look like illustrations from a fantastical travelogue. There are extreme angles that make every chase, every duel of wits, every slapstick accident feel heightened and playful. He layers the frame with detail. Whether it's cluttered museum shelves or eerie Egyptian tombs, there's always something to look at, something rich with texture and personality. He doesn't just frame action. He frames attitude. And let's talk color. This film has a palette that practically glows. Besson drenches Paris in rich sepia tones and warm golden light, making the past feel alive and just slightly enchanted. It's not gritty realism. This is romanticized history, where the city breathes and glows and feels like the perfect playground for all the strange events about to unfold. Even the underground catacombs have a moody, painterly quality. There's a kind of visual poetry in the way Besson lights his scenes. It's theatrical, yes, but purposefully so. It leans into the fantasy, embraces the artificiality, and makes the audience feel like they've stepped into a moving illustration. The editing also deserves a standing ovation. It's tight, rhythmic, and gleefully irreverent at times. Besson isn't afraid to jump cut through action or slow down a moment just to let a joke land properly. He plays with timing the way a musician plays with beats. Some transitions are abrupt on purpose, snapping you from one absurd situation to another before your brain can fully process the previous one. That's part of the charm. It keeps you off balance, keeps you laughing, and keeps you leaning in to see what nonsense might pop up next. And then there's how Besson handles narrative. He doesn't treat the story like a rigid path to be followed. Instead, he treats it like a winding street market. There's something strange around every corner, and you're invited to wander and explore. The film indulges in little detours, side characters, moments that don't necessarily move the plot forward but absolutely enrich the world. A mummy's casual observations about modern society, a bureaucrat's comically slow reaction to chaos, a policeman's flustered attempts at intimidation. Besson lets these moments breathe, and they give the film soul. They show he's not just interested in telling a story, he's interested in letting this oddball world live. One of the most impressive things Besson does as a director is manage the tonal blend of comedy and adventure. A lot of directors struggle with that cocktail. Lean too hard on the laughs and you lose the stakes. Get too caught up in the drama and the fun disappears. But Besson walks that line with almost mischievous precision. The comedy is broad but never lazy. The adventure is wild but never self-serious. He treats every plot twist, no matter how absurd, with just enough sincerity to sell it. When a pterodactyl flies through Paris, it doesn't feel ridiculous. It feels like exactly what should be happening in a world this delightfully unhinged. What's also worth praising is how Besson directs his actors. He gives them room to play but always keeps them within the boundaries of the world he's building. He knows when to let a scene simmer and when to let it explode. He never lets the tone go off the rails because every performance, every camera move, every sound effect has been calibrated to maintain the film's specific sense of rhythm. There's a trust between director and cast that's visible in every scene. No one's improvising their way out of character. Everyone is tuned into the same bizarre frequency. And that's because Besson is behind the curtain, making sure the chaos sings in harmony. In short, Besson directs this film not like a traditional director, but like a madcap puppeteer, tugging on 100 strings at once, making mummies dance, pterodactyls swoop, and journalists throw witty jabs like grenades. He's not just telling a story, he's staging a spectacle, and doing it with a sense of flair and fantasy that makes every scene burst with life. It's confident, it's unapologetic, and it's endlessly fun to watch. Alright, let's really dive headfirst into Luc Besson's direction of the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec and unpack the sheer brilliance behind the camera that turns this film from a simple adaptation into an exhilarating, visually lush carnival of adventure and whimsy. Besson is a director who doesn't just tell you a story. He immerses you into a fully realized world that feels like a living, breathing comic book come to life. Every frame is crafted with care, every movement intentional, and every choice loaded with a sense of playful mischief that keeps you hooked from start to finish. First off, the tone Besson sets is a masterstroke of balance. This movie dances effortlessly between the realms of fantasy, mystery, comedy, and action, and yet never feels disjointed or uneven. Instead, it glides through these genres as though they were different shades of the same color. The humor is sharp but never mean-spirited, the thrills are genuine but wrapped in a blanket of whimsy, and the supernatural elements are treated as matter of fact, which makes the whole thing feel like a world where anything can happen, and usually does. Besson doesn't just mix genres. He blends them into a signature cocktail that's at once intoxicating and refreshing. You feel the director's love for the source material in every scene, his excitement bubbling over and infecting the entire production. The pacing is relentless but carefully controlled. Besson moves the story along like a high-speed locomotive with a perfectly engineered braking system. There's never a dull moment, but at the same time, he knows when to ease off the throttle just enough to let a joke land or a character's emotions sink in. This creates a rhythm that's exhilarating without ever being exhausting. Action scenes are fast and kinetic. Chases, escapes, and fights are shot with a fluidity that pulls you right into the heart of the chaos. And then, just when you think you're racing along too quickly, Besson slows things down to linger on a quirky detail or a beautifully composed tableau, reminding you that this is also a film that loves to savor its own eccentricities. Visually, Besson's direction is an absolute feast. His eye for composition is meticulous, bordering on obsessive. Every shot is loaded with layers of detail. Be it the cluttered shelves of an antiquities shop, the eerie corridors of the Paris catacombs, or the sun-drenched streets bustling with oddly dressed pedestrians. It's as if Besson has painted each scene with a brush dipped in imagination and history. He revels in contrasts, the dark and dusty tombs against the golden glow of Parisian sunlight, the rigid lines of bureaucratic offices against the wild chaos of resurrected mummies running amok. These contrasts aren't just visual. They reinforce the thematic juxtapositions of the film. Order versus chaos, reality versus fantasy, the modern world versus ancient mysteries. One of the most thrilling things about Besson's direction is how he makes the supernatural elements feel grounded in the film's universe. The resurrection of a pterodactyl isn't treated as a special effect or a gimmick. It's an event with real consequences that characters react to with a mixture of terror, wonder, and deadpan acceptance. Besson's camera doesn't shy away from these moments. Instead, it lingers just long enough to make the surreal feel tangible. His use of practical effects mixed with CGI is seamless, helping to maintain a tactile quality that keeps the magic believable. The supernatural doesn't feel like an add-on. It's woven into the fabric of the story, and that's down to Besson's skillful orchestration. Another brilliant choice is Besson's playful use of camera angles and movements. He frequently employs dynamic tracking shots that dart through crowded streets or follow characters in chase sequences, creating a sense of immersion and urgency. At times, the camera swoops and spins with such energy that you almost feel the dizzying rush of the adventure. Yet, in quieter moments, he switches to carefully composed static shots or slow pans that invite you to soak in the richness of the world. This ebb and flow of motion keeps the visual storytelling fresh and unpredictable, just like the narrative itself. Sound and music under Besson's direction also deserve a nod. The film's score and sound design are woven tightly into the experience, complementing the visuals and enhancing the mood without ever overwhelming the scenes. The music often bounces between jaunty, upbeat tunes and darker, more mysterious motifs, perfectly mirroring the film's tonal shifts. Sound effects, whether it's the flapping wings of a giant prehistoric bird or the clatter of mummy wrappings, are crisp and immersive, pulling the audience deeper into the madness unfolding on screen. What's really striking about Besson's directing style here is how he creates a sense of scale that feels grand without losing intimacy. The sprawling Parisian settings, the vast catacombs, the chaotic streets are all filmed with an epic scope. Yet the camera never forgets to focus on the characters' expressions and small gestures. It's a rare blend, feeling like you're part of a huge adventure while still staying connected to the human and not-so-human heart of the story. Besson's handling of the ensemble cast also speaks volumes about his directorial finesse. He gives each actor the space to shine, but also molds their performances to serve the quirky tone of the film. There's a clear sense of rhythm between characters, almost like a well-rehearsed stage play, where each interaction crackles with energy and timing. The dialogue flows naturally, punctuated by well-timed pauses and reactions that heighten both humor and tension. Besson's direction ensures that even the most absurd moments are grounded in character dynamics, which is no small feat in a film filled with talking mummies and flying dinosaurs. Finally, Besson's narrative vision for the film is boldly unconventional. He treats the story not as a strict linear path but more like a whimsical tapestry woven with colorful threads. Some threads lead to important plot points, while others are delightful detours packed with humor, mystery, or pure spectacle. The film occasionally leaps forward, backtracks, or sidesteps entirely, and Besson embraces this with open arms. He trusts the audience to keep up, to enjoy the ride, and to revel in the delightful madness. This freedom in storytelling makes the film unpredictable and endlessly entertaining. In sum, Luc Besson's direction transforms the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec from a simple pulp adventure into a dazzling visual and narrative playground. His unique blend of pacing, tone, style, and imagination shapes every moment, ensuring the film is not just watched, but experienced. It's a movie that invites you to suspend disbelief, throw your hands in the air, and simply enjoy the wild, wonderful ride. Let's really dig into the editing and pacing of the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec, because this is where the film's heartbeat truly pulses. Where the wild, whimsical, and sometimes downright bizarre story gets its perfect tempo. The editor isn't just cutting scenes together. They're orchestrating a lively dance that keeps you glued to the screen, juggling moments of breathless excitement with those rare, precious pauses that let you catch the full flavor of this quirky world. Think of it as a carefully choreographed roller coaster ride through the surreal streets of early 20th century Paris, where the speed changes aren't random but calculated to deliver maximum thrills and laughs. From the very opening sequence, the editing grabs you by the collar and pulls you into Adele's fast-paced universe. The film wastes no time setting its rhythm, hopping from one scene to another with snappy cuts that keep the energy high. These quick transitions reflect Adele's own restless spirit. She's always on the move, charging headfirst into danger and mystery without a moment's hesitation. The editing mirrors that impulsiveness perfectly, often throwing you from one chaotic scene to the next like a juggler tossing flaming torches. It's exhilarating, a little dizzying, and you can't help but keep watching to see where it'll land next. What's brilliant is how the editing manages to keep this rapid momentum without ever becoming confusing or overwhelming. Instead of blurting everything out at once, the film carefully parcels information and action in well-timed bursts. Action scenes especially benefit from this approach. Quick cuts during chases and battles build suspense and urgency, making you feel like you're sprinting alongside Adele or ducking just in time to avoid the flying claws of a prehistoric beast. But just when the adrenaline starts to peak, the editing lets up a little, stretching scenes out, slowing down the pace so you can savor a character's expression, a clever line of dialogue, or a visually stunning detail. These slower moments act like mini pit stops, recharging your attention and letting the story's layers settle in. This balance between speed and pause is what keeps the film's tone so engaging. The editing doesn't just stitch scenes together. It controls the emotional roller coaster. For example, a frantic escape sequence might be followed by a quiet, almost tender moment where Adele contemplates her next move or banters with a side character. The shifts aren't abrupt but feel natural, as if the film is breathing with you, inhaling excitement and exhaling charm. It's like the editor is giving the audience exactly what they need, right when they need it, to stay invested in the story and the characters. Another key aspect is how the editing supports the film's genre-blending personality. Adele's adventures jump between comedy, mystery, fantasy, and even horror, and the editing plays a crucial role in making those tonal shifts feel smooth rather than jarring. A scene might start with a light-hearted exchange, then pivot sharply into tense suspense, and suddenly veer into outright surrealism with a flying dinosaur soaring over Paris rooftops. The timing of these cuts is crucial. Too fast and it could feel chaotic, too slow and it risks losing impact. The editor nails this delicate timing, letting the film's unique flavor shine through every transition. The film also sprinkles in some clever editorial flourishes that add an extra layer of fun. Sometimes, rather than a straightforward cut, transitions are linked by visual motifs or thematic echoes, like cutting from the shadow of a mummy wrapping to the winding streets of Paris, creating a playful, almost dreamlike flow. This technique enhances the whimsical tone and keeps the audience on their toes, anticipating the next creative leap. It's editing that doesn't just serve the story, but plays with it, turning the narrative into an imaginative puzzle you want to solve. Handling a story with multiple subplots and a large ensemble cast is no small feat, but the editing here is like a masterful juggler keeping all the balls in the air. Even as the plot weaves through various mysteries, character interactions, and supernatural events, the pace keeps everything coherent and moving forward. Every subplot gets its moment without dragging the main narrative down, and the editor makes sure the audience never feels lost or overloaded. It's a storytelling tightrope walk with no safety net, and it's pulled off with impressive grace. The rhythm of the film, this ebb and flow between fast and slow, chaos and calm, humor and tension, is also key to its emotional impact. By controlling the timing of scenes and cuts, the editing shapes how you feel about the characters and their journey. The quick cuts in action sequences make danger feel immediate and real, while the slower, more deliberate edits in dialogue-heavy moments allow you to connect emotionally with Adele and her companions. This push and pull creates a dynamic viewing experience that keeps you not just entertained but emotionally engaged. In short, the editing and pacing aren't just technical details here. They are fundamental storytelling tools that shape the entire experience of the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec. The way the film moves from scene to scene, speeds up, slows down, and plays with tone and timing makes it a living, breathing adventure full of surprises. Watching it feels less like following a script and more like being swept up in a whirlwind of fantasy, humor, and mystery. Exactly what an extraordinary adventure should be. The soundtrack and score of The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec aren't just a simple background element. They act like a mischievous, unseen character weaving through the entire film, shaping its mood and guiding the audience's emotions from one scene to the next with playful subtlety and dramatic flair. The music breathes life into this colorful, quirky world, transforming it from just a visual spectacle into a fully immersive experience that captures the wild, unpredictable nature of Adele's adventures. It's a soundtrack that knows when to shout, when to whisper, and when to pull back entirely, creating a rich sonic tapestry that complements the story's unique blend of humor, mystery, fantasy, and suspense. Right off the bat, the score grabs your attention with a jaunty, lively melody that perfectly sets the tone. It's like the film's musical signature. Bubbly, energetic, and a bit mischievous, mirroring Adele's spunky, fearless personality. This opening tune carries a distinct Parisian flair, blending the sounds of traditional instruments like accordion, clarinet, and brass with modern orchestral layers, producing something that feels both authentic to the early 20th century and refreshingly contemporary. The music immediately signals to the audience that this won't be your run-of-the-mill adventure. It's a playful romp through a fantastical version of Paris where the unusual is the norm. The composer expertly uses recurring motifs, short, memorable musical phrases associated with particular characters, themes, or emotions, that help the audience stay grounded even as the story jumps wildly between genres and moods. For example, whenever Adele springs into action or concocts one of her clever plans, a cheeky, slightly whimsical melody pops up, reinforcing her role as the clever, irrepressible heroine. These motifs act like auditory bookmarks, threading through the narrative and connecting disparate scenes, whether it's a tense confrontation, a comedic moment, or a burst of supernatural chaos. They provide a reassuring sense of continuity that keeps you emotionally invested as the plot twists and turns. What makes the score stand out is its incredible versatility. It effortlessly adapts to the film's shifting tones, moving fluidly between moments of light-hearted comedy, spine-tingling suspense, and grandiose fantasy. During scenes filled with humor, the music is playful and bouncy, often featuring unexpected instruments or quirky rhythms that underline the film's sense of fun. When the story turns dark or mysterious, the score shifts gears. Strings might swell with haunting undertones or low, rumbling notes creep in to build tension without overpowering the scene. This dynamic range means the music is always in perfect sync with the emotions on screen, enhancing rather than distracting from the narrative. One of the most fascinating things about the film's sound design is how the music uses silence and restraint as powerful storytelling tools. In some suspenseful or eerie moments, the score pulls back almost entirely, letting ambient sounds, the distant howl of wind, footsteps echoing down a dark hallway, or the flutter of ancient wings, take center stage. These quiet patches heighten anticipation and make the moments when the music does return feel even more impactful. It's a masterclass in pacing that keeps you on edge and fully engaged, showing that sometimes the absence of sound can say as much as a soaring orchestra. The seamless integration of score and sound effects is another highlight. The music never feels like it's competing with dialogue or sound effects. Instead, it weaves around them, filling emotional gaps and adding depth to every scene. Whether it's the clatter of a frantic chase, the creaking of an ancient mummy sarcophagus, or the bustling noises of Parisian streets, the soundtrack sits perfectly in the mix, enhancing the film's rich atmosphere without ever overwhelming the senses. There's also a playful use of period-specific musical elements that ground the film in its early 1900s setting while allowing room for creative expression. The occasional bursts of jazzy horns, swinging percussion, and melodic accordion lines conjure the feeling of wandering through a lively Parisian neighborhood, bustling with energy and secrets. These touches aren't just decorative, they deepen the sense of place and time, making the city itself feel like a character in the story, full of mystery and charm. During the film's most epic or supernatural moments, the score swells into grand, sweeping orchestral pieces that elevate the stakes and add a sense of wonder. These moments give the adventure a cinematic scale that contrasts beautifully with the film's otherwise quirky, humorous tone. It's this balance, between intimate character moments and larger-than-life spectacle, that the music captures so well, guiding the audience through the highs and lows of the story with skill and sensitivity. The score's playful spirit also reflects the film's self-awareness. Even in tense or dramatic scenes, there's often a musical undercurrent that winks at the audience, reminding us not to take things too seriously. This adds an extra layer of enjoyment, as the soundtrack becomes part of the storytelling itself, not just an accompaniment. The music and the film engage in a delightful back and forth, each enhancing the other's quirks and surprises. In essence, the soundtrack and score of The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec are integral to the film's charm and appeal. They guide the audience through a world that is as unpredictable as it is enchanting, using melody and silence, rhythm and rest, to create an experience that is emotionally rich, tonally dynamic, and endlessly entertaining. The music is not just heard but felt, making every moment of Adele's extraordinary journey all the more vivid and unforgettable. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec stands out as a vivid playground of visual imagination, where every frame bursts with creativity and wonder, and the visual effects take center stage in crafting this extraordinary universe. From the bustling streets of early 20th century Paris to the shadowy depths of ancient tombs, the effects serve as a bridge between the mundane and the fantastical, inviting viewers into a world where dinosaurs fly overhead and mummies come to life, all while maintaining a remarkable sense of cohesion and believability. What's truly fascinating is how the film expertly balances the cutting-edge digital wizardry of CGI with the timeless charm of practical effects, blending the two so harmoniously that the boundary between real and unreal blurs beautifully, leaving you completely immersed without even realizing where reality ends and imagination begins. Starting with the CGI, it's clear that the filmmakers approached the digital effects not as mere eye candy, but as essential storytelling tools designed to enrich the film's whimsical atmosphere. Unlike many effects-heavy movies that risk overwhelming viewers with flashy but hollow visuals, the CGI here is purpose-driven and meticulously crafted. Take the prehistoric creatures, for example. The massive pterodactyls gliding through the foggy Parisian sky, or the towering dinosaur-like monsters crashing through streets and buildings. Each digital beast is rendered with painstaking detail. Their textures, scales, and movements are all convincingly lifelike, but also just a touch exaggerated to fit the film's playful tone. This allows them to be both awe-inspiring and fun, keeping you on the edge of your seat while also reminding you that you're in a fantastical adventure rather than a documentary. The fluidity of their motions, the way they interact with the environment, and how they cast shadows and reflections all contribute to the sense that these creatures truly belong in this reimagined Paris. However, what truly elevates the visual experience is how seamlessly these CGI elements are integrated with practical effects. The physical, hands-on artistry that grounds the film in tangible reality. From intricately designed sets dripping with period detail to puppetry and animatronics that bring smaller creatures and characters to life, the practical effects inject warmth and texture that no amount of digital polish could replicate alone. For instance, the mummy sequences showcase expertly applied makeup, textured bandages, and animatronic movements that feel organic and slightly eerie, offering a tactile authenticity that pulls you deeper into the film's mysterious, supernatural world. Miniature models of Parisian architecture and period props also provide a real-world scale and weight to the film's environments, making the CGI-enhanced moments pop even more vividly by contrast. This hybrid approach, where digital effects amplify the practical foundation, creates a dynamic visual rhythm that keeps the audience visually engaged without ever tipping into overkill. In quieter scenes, the camera lingers on practical details. The subtle rustle of fabric, the grime on stone walls, the weathered faces of extras, reminders that this is a physical world inhabited by real people. Then, when the action ramps up, CGI sweeps in to deliver jaw-dropping spectacle, expanding the film's scope and allowing for wild creativity impossible to achieve with practical effects alone. This balance prevents fatigue and keeps the visuals fresh, constantly surprising the viewer with new layers of complexity and wonder. Lighting and color grading are other unsung heroes in the visual effects symphony. Every CGI element is bathed in the same moody muted palette that characterizes the live-action footage, ensuring a smooth blend that tricks the eye into perceiving the digital creatures and effects as naturally part of the film's environment. Shadows fall convincingly, highlights catch on scales and feathers, and reflections ripple realistically on wet cobblestones. These subtle technical touches are crucial in maintaining suspension of disbelief, and they show a high level of craftsmanship and attention to detail from the visual effects team. The film also embraces a slightly stylized aesthetic that perfectly suits its tone, one that leans more toward the exaggerated, almost comic book-like visual language than strict photorealism. This choice adds a layer of charm and whimsy, making even the most outlandish creatures and moments feel playful rather than frightening or sterile. It's a world where a flying dinosaur swooping over Paris feels just as natural as Adele's quick wit and daring escapades. This visual style supports the story's spirit of adventure and fun, allowing the effects to delight and entertain without ever overwhelming the narrative or the characters. Humor is another facet of the visual effects that shouldn't be overlooked. There are subtle gags and clever visual touches, like a monster's awkward stumble or an exaggerated reaction, that complement the film's light-hearted tone. These moments of levity highlight the filmmaker's awareness of the fantastical nature of the story and their desire to keep the audience smiling through the thrills and chills. The effects become an extension of the film's personality, not just technical feats, making the viewing experience more engaging and memorable. In the high-energy sequences, the visual effects really come into their own, propelling the action forward with dynamic energy. Explosions, crashes, and creature battles are enhanced with slick digital touches that add impact and excitement. Yet, the effects never steal the spotlight from the human drama and character moments. They serve the story by heightening tension and spectacle, making every showdown feel significant and thrilling. This ensures that while the visuals dazzle, they always remain connected to the emotional stakes of the plot. Behind the scenes, the marriage of practical effects and CGI speaks to a deep respect for filmmaking craftsmanship. Rather than relying solely on digital shortcuts, the creative team invested in real-world artistry. Miniatures, costumes, makeup, puppetry, giving the film a textured authenticity that pays homage to classic adventure cinema while pushing visual storytelling into fresh territory. This synergy results in a world that feels immersive and alive, where every corner of Paris hides surprises both magical and mechanical. Ultimately, the visual effects in the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec do far more than create spectacle. They build a vivid, coherent world where the extraordinary is possible and the impossible feels within reach. They draw you into Adele's wild journey, wrapping you in a blend of wonder, humor, and excitement that's as visually delightful as it is narratively satisfying. Whether it's the subtle flicker of a mummy's eyes or the thunderous roar of a prehistoric beast, every effect is crafted to enhance the story's charm and keep you hooked from start to finish, making the film a true feast for the eyes and the imagination. The dialogue and script in the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec truly sparkle with a rare kind of magic that feels as vibrant and unpredictable as the film's titular heroine herself. From the very first lines, you get swept into a whirlwind of sharp wit, playful banter, and clever repartee that doesn't just serve to move the plot forward, but also paints a vivid portrait of the characters and the world they inhabit. The script strikes an impressive balance. It's richly layered with humor and cleverness, yet never feels showy or artificial. Instead, it has this effortless charm, like the characters are having a lively, spontaneous conversation you're lucky enough to overhear, filled with subtle nuances and personality. Adele Blanc-Sec's dialogue is a highlight on its own. She's a woman ahead of her time, bold, intelligent, and with a dry, incisive sense of humor that cuts through even the darkest or most mysterious moments. Her lines often come with a sly smile, a touch of sarcasm, or a knowing glance, making you feel like she's sharing an inside joke with the audience. This playful tone keeps the mood light even when the stakes are high, and it perfectly captures her fearless, adventurous spirit. Her words reveal her as not just a detective and scientist but also as someone who relishes the absurdities and curiosities of the strange world she navigates. Whether she's facing down supernatural threats or bureaucratic nonsense, her dialogue bristles with confidence and sharp intelligence. The supporting characters are no less delightfully drawn through their speech. Each one has a distinctive voice that feels carefully crafted to reflect their personality, social standing, and quirks. The stuffy government officials speak in pompous, overly formal tones that contrast hilariously with Adele's informal, breezy style. Their dialogues often highlight the absurdity of rigid bureaucracy when faced with extraordinary phenomena, and this clash creates many comedic sparks. Meanwhile, the eccentric scientists and scholars in the film spout lines filled with enthusiastic jargon, wild theories, and a contagious passion for the unexplained. These characters often burst into animated debates or deadpan observations that inject humor without ever derailing the story's momentum. The script's cleverness shines especially in its ability to weave humor and suspense seamlessly together. There are moments when a line of dialogue instantly diffuses tension with a well-placed quip, or when a seemingly casual remark hints at a deeper mystery just beneath the surface. This layering of meaning keeps viewers engaged on multiple levels. There's always something to chuckle at, but also plenty to ponder. It's the kind of writing that rewards close attention and repeat viewings because you keep catching new shades of meaning or subtle jokes tucked into conversations. The dialogue becomes a game between the film and its audience, inviting you to play along and stay curious. What's also remarkable is how the script embraces its roots in the comic book tradition without feeling campy or over the top. The lines often have a slightly theatrical flair, like something out of a pulp adventure, but they're grounded enough in character and context to feel natural. This blend gives the film a unique voice that's both nostalgic and fresh, evoking the excitement of classic mystery and adventure stories while adding modern sensibilities. It's a tone that lets the film take itself seriously without ever becoming dour, and that's largely thanks to the script's nimble, playful dialogue. The script also excels at building relationships through conversation. The interactions between Adele and her allies or antagonists crackle with chemistry and unspoken tension. You can often tell more about a relationship from a single exchanged glance or a cutting remark than from overt exposition. These nuanced exchanges add emotional depth and make the characters' journeys feel richer and more believable. Whether it's a friendly tease, a pointed accusation, or a heartfelt confession, the dialogue carries a range of emotions that keeps the story grounded even as it leaps into the fantastical. Emotional moments in the script feel earned because the writing never sacrifices sincerity for style. When the film needs to slow down and reveal something tender or serious, the dialogue does so with honesty and restraint. These quieter moments are often brief but powerful, offering glimpses into the characters' vulnerabilities and motivations. The contrast between these heartfelt exchanges and the rapid-fire wit elsewhere in the film makes the emotional beats land with more impact, giving the audience a chance to connect more deeply with the characters and their stakes. The pacing of the dialogue is another area where the script shines. Conversations move briskly, keeping scenes engaging without lingering too long on any single exchange. This efficiency means the story never feels bogged down by exposition or excessive chatter. Instead, every line feels purposeful, whether it's revealing a plot twist, developing a character, or setting up a future conflict. This tight scripting maintains momentum while allowing moments of levity and reflection to breathe, creating a rhythm that mirrors the film's adventurous spirit. The script also has a wonderful ear for memorable lines, those little nuggets of dialogue that stick with you long after the credits roll. Whether it's a dry one-liner from Adele delivered just before a daring escape, a pompous declaration from a bumbling official, or a cryptic warning from a mysterious figure, these lines have a flair for the dramatic and the comedic alike. They serve as touchstones that encapsulate the film's tone and invite the audience to share in its playful irreverence. These standout moments give the film a quotable quality, making it feel like a story told by and for fans of clever, genre-savvy storytelling. Another strength of the script lies in its use of language to evoke the time and place of the story. The dialogue feels carefully rooted in the early 20th century, with period-appropriate vocabulary and expressions that add flavor and authenticity without becoming stilted or inaccessible. This historical grounding helps transport the audience to a specific world and era, enhancing the immersive quality of the film. At the same time, the script's humor and phrasing feel timeless enough to resonate with modern viewers, striking a delicate balance between period detail and universal appeal. Even the film's exposition-heavy moments are handled with finesse. Instead of dumping information in clunky, unnatural ways, the script weaves background details and plot points organically into conversations and witty remarks. This approach keeps the story accessible and engaging, preventing the narrative from becoming bogged down or confusing. It also makes the characters feel smarter and more resourceful, as they share knowledge with each other and with the audience in a way that feels natural and entertaining. Overall, the dialogue and script of The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec are a dazzling mix of intelligence, humor, and heart. They give the film its distinctive voice, transforming what could have been a simple adventure story into a vibrant. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec isn't just content with playing within the lines of its genre. It practically redraws them with a bold, exuberant flourish. The film wears its adventure, mystery, and fantasy influences on its sleeve but refuses to be boxed in by any single category, blending and bending genre conventions with the confidence of someone who's read every pulp novel and seen every serial cliffhanger, and now wants to tell the story their own way. This self-aware yet sincere embrace of genre tropes gives the movie a quirky charm and a fresh energy that makes it stand out in a crowded field of adventure films. At its core, the film taps into the classic spirit of the pulp adventure genre, where a daring protagonist embarks on thrilling escapades filled with danger, ancient secrets, and extraordinary creatures. But Adele Blanc-Sec isn't a typical heroine who simply reacts to the story. She drives it with sharp intellect, fearless curiosity, and a snappy sense of humor. This alone upends some expectations. Rather than being a passive damsel or brooding hero, Adele is a witty, resourceful woman who takes charge, often outsmarting her male counterparts and navigating a world filled with supernatural oddities and political intrigue. The film's genre execution thrives on this inversion, making her not just a protagonist but a force of nature that propels the story forward. The film's playful attitude toward genre clichés is part of its charm. It embraces recognizable elements: the mysterious mummy, the giant pterodactyl rampaging over Paris, shadowy government conspiracies. But rather than treating them as tired clichés, it amplifies their inherent absurdity with affectionate humor and stylish flair. There's a knowing wink in how it handles these classic tropes. The film seems to say, yes, this is exactly what you expect, and here's how we're going to make it even more fun. This kind of meta-awareness keeps the narrative feeling lively and original, as if it's constantly nudging the audience to lean in and enjoy the ride with a smile. The way Adele Blanc-Sec balances action, suspense, and humor is a masterclass in genre blending. Action scenes are not mere set pieces but expressions of the film's vibrant tone. The chases, fights, and escapes burst with energy, often infused with a cartoonish exuberance that delights rather than intimidates. The pacing of these sequences is snappy, and their choreography sometimes borders on the fantastical, perfectly matching the story's surreal and whimsical elements. Suspense builds naturally around the mystery of Adele's investigations, but just as tension rises, the film pulls back with moments of comic relief or witty exchanges, ensuring the tone never grows too heavy or grim. This ebb and flow create a rhythm that keeps viewers fully engaged, riding a wave of excitement and laughter. Humor in the film isn't simply peppered throughout to lighten the mood. It's an essential part of the storytelling fabric. The script and performances revel in clever wordplay, situational irony, and physical comedy, often poking gentle fun at the very genre conventions the film is celebrating. This humor feels organic, arising naturally from character interactions, the absurdity of the situations, or the exaggerated personalities inhabiting the film's world. It's not forced or slapstick but clever and often delightfully deadpan, giving the film a distinct voice that feels both timeless and contemporary. This comedic sensibility helps the film avoid the clichés that can weigh down adventure stories and instead makes it feel like a lively, unpredictable romp. The mystery component of the film also gets a fresh treatment. While the genre often relies on a straightforward detective narrative, gather clues, uncover the villain, solve the puzzle. Adele Blanc-Sec weaves a more intricate tapestry by infusing the investigation with supernatural elements and bizarre occurrences. This fusion of detective work with fantasy opens up endless possibilities for surprises and imaginative storytelling. The clues lead not just to logical deductions but to encounters with prehistoric creatures, mystical forces, and inexplicable phenomena that challenge both the protagonist and the audience to think outside conventional bounds. This enriches the genre execution by adding layers of complexity and wonder that keep the mystery compelling and unpredictable. The film also excels at playing with genre pacing and structure. Instead of a predictable rise and fall, the narrative moves with a lively unpredictability, punctuated by sudden shifts in tone, unexpected twists, and playful digressions. This keeps the viewer on their toes and injects the story with a sense of spontaneous adventure that feels fresh and exhilarating. The way the film intersperses moments of high drama with bursts of humor or light-hearted character moments creates a dynamic rhythm that prevents the story from ever stagnating or becoming monotonous. It's a reminder that genre storytelling doesn't have to be formulaic. It can be as spontaneous and alive as the characters themselves. Characters in Adele Blanc-Sec both embody and subvert traditional genre roles. Adele herself is a trailblazer, a proto-feminist heroine who confidently navigates a male-dominated world filled with danger and mystery. The supporting cast features archetypes like the bumbling bureaucrat, the eccentric professor, and the menacing villain, but none feel like mere stereotypes. Each is infused with quirks, humor, or unexpected depth that keeps them feeling real and interesting rather than predictable stock characters. This approach deepens the film's genre execution, making familiar roles feel new and adding richness to the storytelling. Visually, the film pays homage to the grand traditions of adventure and fantasy, with lush period details, vibrant costumes, and atmospheric settings that evoke a sense of old-world mystery and wonder. But it also brings a modern kinetic energy to its visuals, matching the genre's excitement with dynamic camera work and imaginative design choices. This blend of classic and contemporary styles mirrors the film's approach to genre, respectful yet innovative, enhancing the immersive experience and highlighting the story's fantastical elements. What's truly impressive is how the film manages to juggle its many genre elements without losing focus or coherence. Adventure, mystery, fantasy, and comedy all weave together seamlessly, each element amplifying the others rather than competing. The result is a richly textured film that feels like a roller coaster ride through a world both familiar and wildly imaginative. This balance ensures that every aspect of the genre is fully realized and contributes to a satisfying, multifaceted experience. The film's fresh take on supernatural tropes and ancient curses further distinguishes its genre execution. Rather than using these elements as simple background or plot devices, it makes them central to the story's charm and intrigue. The prehistoric creatures and mystical artifacts become almost characters themselves, bringing visual spectacle, narrative complexity, and moments of genuine wonder. This imaginative treatment elevates the genre staples from mere clichés to memorable highlights, breathing new life into the adventure and fantasy elements. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec manages to do something pretty remarkable when it comes to social and cultural commentary. It sneaks it in under the radar, blending it effortlessly with a fast-paced, fantastical adventure so that you might barely notice you're being invited to think about some surprisingly deep topics. The film's setting, Paris in the early 1910s, isn't just a pretty backdrop. It's a vibrant, almost living snapshot of a society on the brink of seismic change. This period, rich with tension between old-world traditions and the burgeoning forces of modernity, politics, and scientific progress, provides fertile ground for subtle but effective commentary that plays out amid the thrilling escapades of our heroine. One of the most interesting aspects of the film's social commentary lies in its playful but pointed critique of bureaucracy and authority figures. Throughout the movie, government officials, scientists, and other representatives of institutional power are portrayed with a delightful dose of satire. They often come across as bumbling, overly cautious, or comically obsessed with maintaining order in a world that's clearly spinning out of their control. This isn't just for laughs. It's a clever nod to the inefficiencies and absurdities often found in political systems, especially in times of rapid change and uncertainty. The film captures the paradox of authority trying to impose rationality on the irrational, but frequently failing due to their own narrow-mindedness or fear of the unknown. This portrayal feels natural and earned, never intrusive or heavy-handed, and it keeps the tone light while inviting viewers to reflect on the sometimes farcical nature of bureaucracy. Then there's the film's bold approach to gender roles, which feels especially fresh and engaging given its historical setting. Adele Blanc-Sec herself is a sparkling example of early feminist ideals, a daring, intelligent woman who isn't content to sit quietly on the sidelines. She's assertive, witty, and endlessly resourceful, refusing to be defined or limited by the rigid gender expectations of her time. Through her character, the film gently yet firmly challenges the patriarchal norms of the early 20th century. It highlights how women, despite social constraints, were already making waves and carving out spaces for independence and influence. Rather than feeling like a token gesture, Adele's characterization embodies a real sense of empowerment and agency, making her adventures feel like symbolic acts of rebellion against a male-dominated world. The way other characters react to her, sometimes with disbelief, sometimes with begrudging respect, adds layers to this social commentary, revealing the tensions and contradictions embedded in gender politics of the era. The film also explores the uneasy relationship between science and superstition that marked the period. The early 1900s were a time of dazzling scientific discoveries and rapid technological progress, but they were also an era when the mystical, the occult, and the unexplained still held significant sway over the popular imagination. Adele Blanc-Sec captures this clash beautifully, weaving it into the narrative in a way that feels natural and often amusing. Scientists and skeptics try to explain away supernatural events, while the mysterious and the magical stubbornly refuse to be dismissed. This interplay isn't just a plot device. It's a reflection of a broader cultural tension between rationalism and wonder, progress and tradition. The film doesn't take sides dogmatically but instead celebrates the coexistence of these opposing forces, suggesting that curiosity and imagination are just as important as logic and evidence in shaping how people understand the world. On a subtler level, the film also touches on European colonial attitudes and the fascination with exotic cultures and ancient civilizations. The mysterious artifacts, ancient curses, and otherworldly creatures that drive the story are steeped in the kind of Orientalist mystique that was prevalent in Western thought during the early 20th century. While the film doesn't delve deeply into a critique of colonialism, the presence of these elements serves as a reminder of how Western societies have often exoticized and mythologized other cultures. This layer adds complexity to the story, inviting viewers to consider how history, culture, and power intersect, even in a light-hearted adventure. The film's whimsical tone prevents this from becoming a heavy topic, but the undercurrent is there, enriching the narrative. Paris itself functions almost like a character in the film, reflecting the social and cultural vibrancy of the time. The city is portrayed in all its contradictions. The glittering salons where the elite gather, the smoky cafes where artists and intellectuals debate, the shadowy back alleys where danger and mystery lurk. This rich, textured setting adds depth to the social commentary, showing a society where class divisions are stark but also where cultural innovation and social change are bubbling just beneath the surface. The variety of locations Adele moves through underscores the diversity and complexity of Parisian life, illustrating how different social strata coexist, clash, and influence one another. The film doesn't shy away from poking fun at the political paranoia and conspiracy theories swirling around the period, which resonate even today. The shadowy plots, secret organizations, and sinister villains scheming behind closed doors mirror real anxieties about nationalism, espionage, and social upheaval that were very much part of the pre-World War I atmosphere. These elements heighten the film's suspense and drama but also serve as a subtle commentary on how fear and distrust can drive societies to extremes. The exaggerated portrayals keep it entertaining but also remind viewers that such dynamics have a long history and enduring relevance. What's particularly impressive is how the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec balances all these social and cultural insights without ever feeling preachy or bogged down. Instead of slowing the story or disrupting the fun, these themes blend seamlessly with the film's adventurous spirit and comedic tone. The commentary often emerges through character interactions, witty dialogue, and the very setting of the film rather than through overt statements or moralizing. This subtlety invites the audience to engage with the ideas organically, making the experience both entertaining and intellectually satisfying. Humor plays a big role in how the film handles complex topics. By exaggerating certain societal flaws, like the pompousness of officials, the skepticism of scientists, or the rigidity of social norms, it creates a space for laughter and reflection simultaneously. This playful approach diffuses tension around sensitive subjects, encouraging viewers to think critically without feeling confronted. It's a clever way of using comedy to explore serious themes in a way that's accessible and enjoyable. In many ways, the film's social and cultural commentary acts as a mirror held up to both its historical setting and to contemporary viewers. It reveals how many of the struggles and contradictions of the early 20th century, issues of power, gender, knowledge, and identity, still resonate today. This gives the film an added layer of meaning, making it more than just a fantastical adventure but also a lively conversation with history and society. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec is one of those films that wraps you up in its vibrant, offbeat world and keeps you emotionally hooked from start to finish in ways you might not expect. It doesn't just rely on flashy visuals or thrilling plot points. It creates a whole experience that makes you feel deeply connected to the story, the characters, and the roller coaster of emotions they go through. This emotional engagement happens on multiple levels, which is what makes the film so much fun and so memorable. Right from the get-go, the movie throws you into a whirlwind of action, mystery, and humor that's impossible to ignore. There's this infectious energy that pulses through every scene, pulling you in and keeping you riveted. The pacing plays a huge role here. It's fast enough to keep your heart racing but smart enough to pause and let moments breathe so you can really feel the impact. It's like the film knows exactly when to hit the gas pedal and when to ease up, which means your emotions are constantly being played with in just the right way. You might be laughing 1 second at a clever line or a ridiculous situation, and the next, you're holding your breath as Adele faces a dangerous supernatural threat. That emotional whiplash is part of the charm, and it keeps you from ever feeling bored or detached. Speaking of laughter, the film's humor is a huge factor in why audiences connect with it emotionally. The witty dialogue, the quirky characters, and the unexpected comedic moments lighten what could otherwise be a heavy or overly dramatic story. The jokes are sharp without being mean-spirited, and the comedy often comes from how the characters react to the bizarre situations they find themselves in. This creates a sense of warmth and playfulness that makes you want to stick around and see what happens next. Humor isn't just comic relief here. It's woven into the fabric of the film and helps build a genuine bond between the audience and the characters. But it's not just laughs. There's real excitement and suspense too. Adele's adventures are packed with thrilling sequences that keep you on the edge of your seat. Whether it's a daring escape from a monster, a tense confrontation, or a mysterious discovery, the film uses action to ratchet up the emotional stakes. You feel your pulse quicken as the danger grows, and because you've been given enough time to care about Adele and her friends, those moments carry real emotional weight. It's not just spectacle. It's storytelling that uses adrenaline to deepen your connection to the characters and the plot. The characters themselves are central to the emotional pull. Adele Blanc-Sec is the heart of the film. Her boldness, intelligence, and quirky charm make her someone you want to cheer for. She's not a flawless hero, she's human, with moments of vulnerability and doubt, which makes her relatable and engaging. You feel invested in her journey, not just because of the external conflicts she faces, but because you see her grow and adapt. The supporting characters add their own flavor too, each bringing humor, tension, or heart to the story. Their relationships with Adele create emotional layers, friendships, rivalries, alliances, that keep you interested and involved. It's like being part of an eccentric, lively group of people whose fates you care about. What's particularly impressive is how the film invites you to think and feel without hitting you over the head with heavy-handed messages. The emotional beats come naturally from the story and the characters, making the experience feel genuine and immersive. The film trusts its audience to pick up on the nuances, which creates a rewarding dynamic where viewers feel like active participants rather than passive observers. Another reason the film resonates emotionally is its clever mix of the fantastic and the everyday. While Adele battles prehistoric creatures and supernatural forces, she also deals with very human struggles. Skepticism from others, social expectations, and personal challenges. This balance grounds the story, making it easier for audiences to relate and empathize with what's happening, even when the plot veers into the extraordinary. You're reminded that beneath all the spectacle, these are people with fears, hopes, and dreams. The film also excels at creating memorable, emotionally charged moments that linger long after the credits roll. Whether it's a heartfelt exchange, a triumphant victory, or a shocking twist, these scenes stick with you because they're earned through strong storytelling and character work. They give you something to talk about and think over, encouraging deeper engagement beyond just watching for entertainment. This makes the film feel richer and more rewarding on repeat viewings, as you catch details and emotional layers you might have missed the first time. Audience engagement is further boosted by the film's clever use of tone and style. The mix of suspense, comedy, and fantasy creates an emotional roller coaster that keeps viewers guessing and emotionally involved. The unexpected turns and playful spirit make watching feel like a collaborative adventure where your feelings, whether laughter, excitement, or surprise, are an essential part of the journey. Ultimately, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec works because it doesn't just tell a story, it invites you to live it alongside its characters. It respects your emotional intelligence and rewards your attention with a dynamic, heartfelt, and fun experience that sticks with you. It's a film that manages to be thrilling, funny, and emotionally resonant all at once, making it a uniquely engaging ride that leaves you wanting more. When it comes to comparing The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec to other films in its genre, a delightful mashup of fantasy, adventure, and comedy, it's like stepping into a world that feels familiar but with its own distinct flavor that sets it apart from a usual fare. You might instantly think of other adventure films that blend supernatural elements with a strong female lead, like Indiana Jones or The Mummy. But Adele's story isn't just another ripoff of those classics. Instead, it takes that adventurous spirit and injects a unique French flair, combining whimsical eccentricity with an old-world charm that feels fresh and unexpected. Unlike many Hollywood blockbusters that aim for relentless action and bombastic effects, this film leans heavily into its quirky storytelling and stylized visuals. It's almost like watching a graphic novel leap off the page, thanks to director Luc Besson's distinctive vision. Besson, known for his high energy and visually striking films like The Fifth Element or Lion, The Professional, brings that same flair here but with a more playful, light-hearted tone. It's like he took the sophistication of his earlier work and mixed it with a touch of vintage pulp adventure, creating something that feels both grand and charmingly intimate at the same time. The film's tone also sets it apart from many genre counterparts. Where some adventure movies might get bogged down in grim seriousness or lean too heavily on predictable tropes, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec dances on the edge of camp and coolness with a wink and a nod. It knows it's absurd at times, and it leans into that absurdity with gusto. This self-awareness brings a kind of joyful irreverence that's rare in the genre, making the movie feel like a breath of fresh air amid the sea of formulaic blockbusters. Comparing the film to other female-led adventures, it holds its own by presenting Adele as a character who is not just a sidekick or a love interest, but the beating heart of the story. Unlike some films that might reduce women to secondary roles in adventure narratives, this one centers a strong, witty, and independent woman whose intelligence and courage drive the entire plot. It's a refreshing reminder that a heroine can be both charmingly eccentric and fiercely capable, without resorting to tired stereotypes. When looking at other adaptations of comic books or graphic novels, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec also takes a different route. While many adaptations opt for a darker, more serious tone to appeal to wider audiences, this film embraces the playful spirit of its source material. It's colorful, imaginative, and sometimes downright silly, which makes it stand out among the often gritty and grim superhero films dominating the market. Instead of trying to ground its fantasy in gritty realism, it fully commits to the surreal and whimsical, giving viewers a unique visual and narrative experience that feels more like a spirited romp than a heavy epic. Visually and stylistically, the film invites comparison with other fantasy adventure films that mix historical settings with supernatural elements. Think Pan's Labyrinth or Stardust. However, unlike those darker, more atmospheric tales, Adele's adventures are brighter and more buoyant, with a tone that feels less haunted and more mischievous. The sets, costumes, and CGI create a richly detailed world that is both believable and fantastical, striking a balance that few films in the genre manage to pull off so effortlessly. In the realm of Besson's own filmography, this movie is like a playful cousin to his more intense action films. It shares his love for strong characters and dynamic storytelling but showcases a lighter, more whimsical side of his directorial style. The pacing and humor here are less about high-octane thrills and more about charm and wit, making it a unique entry that broadens the scope of what a Luc Besson film can be. Overall, when stacked against similar films, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec doesn't just settle into familiar territory. It pushes the boundaries of its genre by blending adventure, fantasy, and comedy with a distinct European sensibility and a heroine who's refreshingly original. It's a film that feels like a love letter to classic pulp adventures but told with a modern twist that keeps it feeling lively, unexpected, and thoroughly entertaining. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec isn't just a wild ride through early 20th century Paris filled with dinosaurs, mummies, and mad scientists. It's also packed with layers of symbolism and metaphors that sneak up on you while you're busy enjoying the spectacle. The film loves to play with visual cues and recurring motifs that add a clever depth beneath its playful surface, inviting viewers to look a little closer and discover that there's more going on than meets the eye. One of the most striking symbolic threads running through the movie is Adele herself, who can be seen as a metaphor for independence and defiance in a time when women were often boxed into strict social roles. She's a fearless adventurer, a writer, and a detective, all rolled into one, constantly challenging the conventions of her society. Her very presence in the film is like a symbol of progress and rebellion against the rigid structures of early 1900s Paris. Every time she leaps into danger or outsmarts her opponents, it's a subtle nod to breaking free from societal expectations and carving out her own path. Adele's character becomes a metaphor for empowerment, wrapped in a vintage adventure tale. The film also uses its supernatural elements as metaphors for the unknown and the irrational forces lurking beneath the surface of a seemingly orderly world. The prehistoric creatures waking up from the depths of time, the reanimated mummy, and the mysterious scientific experiments all serve as symbols of the uncontrollable and chaotic aspects of life. They challenge the characters, and by extension, the audience, to confront fears and mysteries that don't fit neatly into logic or reason. This tension between the rational world and the fantastic unknown is a recurring motif that mirrors broader themes of modernity clashing with tradition, science grappling with superstition. Visually, the film peppers the scenes with symbolic imagery that enriches the storytelling. For example, the recurring motif of birds, especially the giant pterodactyl, can be read as a symbol of freedom and escape but also as a looming threat from the past crashing into the present. Birds are traditionally linked to the idea of the soul or transcendence, and here, their presence adds an eerie, almost mystical layer to the chaos unfolding in the story. They swoop through the skies as both harbingers of danger and symbols of the wild, untamable forces that Adele must navigate. The settings themselves are steeped in symbolism too. The Paris of the film is not just a backdrop but a character in its own right, a city caught between the fading grandeur of the 19th century and the fast-approaching modern age. The contrast between the ancient catacombs and the bustling streets above ground serves as a metaphor for the tension between past and present, known and unknown. The catacombs symbolize buried secrets and hidden fears that refuse to stay buried, just as the city above struggles to maintain order amidst growing chaos. This duality enhances the film's themes by grounding its supernatural elements in a very real human struggle. Costumes and props contribute their own layers of meaning. Adele's outfits, mixing elegance with practicality, symbolize her unique position straddling two worlds: the refined society she's part of and the dangerous adventures she pursues. The scientific equipment and mystical artifacts scattered throughout the film are visual metaphors for humanity's eternal quest to understand and control the universe, yet they often highlight how little control we actually have. This push and pull between knowledge and mystery is a subtle undercurrent that keeps the narrative rich and layered. Even the film's humor carries symbolic weight. The tongue-in-cheek tone and playful exaggerations work as a metaphor for the absurdity of trying to impose strict order on a chaotic world. By laughing at the monsters and mad science, the film reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously, even when confronting big existential questions. This self-aware humor becomes a clever tool that deepens the narrative, turning the adventure into a kind of celebration of curiosity and resilience. Recurring visual motifs like clocks and timepieces also pop up, symbolizing the passage of time and the inevitability of change. The way time seems to bend or distort in the story reflects the film's fascination with history and memory. How the past constantly shapes and haunts the present. Time isn't just a backdrop, it's an active player in the unfolding drama, reminding viewers that adventures are not just physical journeys but journeys through history and identity. Overall, these symbolic and metaphorical layers enrich the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec by weaving together the film's playful surface and its deeper thematic explorations. They invite viewers to engage not just with the story's exciting action and quirky characters, but also with the ideas lurking just beneath the chaos. A clever dance of meaning hidden inside a dazzling adventure. The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec isn't just a standalone adventure. It's actually based on a beloved French comic book series by Jacques Tardy, which already gives it a rich franchise context to play with. Now, while the film adapts elements from multiple volumes of the comics rather than sticking strictly to one storyline, it captures the spirit of the series with its wild blend of fantasy, mystery, and historical whimsy. It doesn't feel like a direct chapter in a long saga but more like a vivid snapshot from a much larger world, teasing a broader narrative full of escapades yet to come. This approach means the movie acts as a gateway for newcomers while giving longtime fans a treat by bringing Adele's world to life in dazzling visual form. It's like opening a treasure chest and finding familiar gems mixed with new surprises. From a historical perspective, the film is a fascinating mix of accurate period detail and playful invention. Set in Paris during the years just before World War I, it immerses viewers in a time of great social change and scientific curiosity. The cityscape, costumes, and technology reflect the Belle Époque era with a genuine feel that transports you back to that vibrant and sometimes chaotic period. You get the hustle of early 20th century Paris streets, the smoky cafes buzzing with intellectual debates, and the underworld lurking in shadowy corners. But the film isn't a history lesson. It's more like history dipped in a bubbling cauldron of fantasy and imagination. The historical accuracy is immersive but elastic, bending the facts just enough to fit the story's wild supernatural elements. For example, while real Parisian landmarks and cultural details anchor the film, the addition of dinosaurs rampaging through the city or mystical experiments pushes the setting into the realm of fantasy. This playful blending creates a rich backdrop that feels alive and textured without getting bogged down by strict realism. It's a bit like stepping into a steampunk-infused time machine, where the world is familiar but also full of unexpected magic and mystery. In terms of how the film fits into the broader cultural history, it reflects early 20th century anxieties and fascinations, especially the clash between science and superstition. The character of Adele, a bold woman scientist and writer, embodies the era's push toward modernity and the expanding role of women in society. Meanwhile, the presence of mystical forces and ancient secrets nods to the lingering fascination with the occult and unexplained phenomena that was very much a part of that time. This blend of historical context and fantasy creates a layered narrative that feels like a love letter to both the past and the imaginative possibilities of storytelling. For those familiar with the comic series, the film condenses and rearranges many plot points, mixing iconic scenes with new interpretations. It's not a faithful panel-by-panel adaptation but rather a reinterpretation that captures the tone and energy of the source material while making it accessible for a wider audience. This gives the movie a bit of a best-of feel, packing multiple adventures and mysteries into one cinematic experience, which can feel a bit whirlwind but never dull. If you think about the potential for this film to kickstart a franchise, it's easy to imagine future installments diving deeper into the many bizarre and thrilling stories from the comics. The world is rich enough and the characters charismatic enough to support sequels or even spin-offs. The movie plants the seeds for this with hints at unresolved mysteries and a universe teeming with supernatural oddities. It's like the first chapter of a larger epic waiting to unfold. So whether you're coming in as a fan of the comics, a history buff curious about Belle Époque Paris, or just someone looking for an entertaining adventure with a twist, The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec offers a vivid imaginative dive into a fascinating period that's as much about exploring history as it is about escaping into fantasy. It's a fun collision of fact and fiction that keeps the story lively, immersive, and endlessly entertaining. When it comes to the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec, the film definitely had a respectable budget that allowed it to bring its quirky, fantastical world vividly to life. With around 27 million euros, roughly $35 million, behind it, the production had enough financial muscle to create elaborate sets, detailed costumes, and eye-catching special effects. You can really see that investment on screen. From the bustling streets of early 1900s Paris to the impressive, sometimes downright bizarre creatures that roam the film. The quality of the production shines through in its rich visuals and inventive practical effects combined with CGI, making it feel like a full-on cinematic adventure that didn't have to cut corners. Despite this solid production value, the film's box office performance was a bit of a mixed bag. It did reasonably well in its home territory of France, where fans of the original comics and local audiences appreciated its unique charm and style. But internationally, it didn't quite make the splash that some might have hoped for. The movie grossed just under $30 million worldwide, which meant it didn't fully recoup its budget when you factor in marketing and distribution costs. So financially speaking, it wasn't a massive hit, but it also wasn't a total flop. More like a modest performer with a loyal fanbase. Part of the challenge was the film's quirky tone and somewhat niche appeal. It's not your typical Hollywood blockbuster, so marketing it to a broad global audience proved tricky. The promotional campaigns highlighted the film's whimsical and fantastical elements, but this blend of period adventure, supernatural fantasy, and comedy didn't easily slot into the usual categories that tend to draw big crowds. Some potential viewers might have been unsure whether it was a family-friendly romp, a dark fantasy, or a vintage detective story, which can make marketing a challenge. Plus, with heavy hitters and franchise films dominating the box office around the time of its release, Adele Blanc-Sec had to fight for attention in a crowded marketplace. Audience reception also played a role in shaping the film's financial journey. Critics were mixed, some loving the visual inventiveness and spirited lead, while others felt the plot was a bit too scattered or that the tone was uneven. This mixed critical response may have tempered enthusiasm among casual viewers who rely on reviews before deciding to watch a film. However, those who did see it often praised the film's originality and charm, which helped it develop a sort of cult following over time, especially among fans of the source material and European fantasy cinema. Interestingly, the film's performance and budget also reflect something about the challenges of adapting beloved comics that don't fit the typical superhero mold. With a reasonable budget but a story that's less mainstream, it's a perfect example of how ambitious films can sometimes struggle to break through commercial barriers, even when they're well-made and visually striking. In the end, the movie's budget enabled it to be a visually rich and imaginative adventure. But the box office returns show that balancing niche storytelling with broad appeal is a tricky dance. Its financial story is one of artistic ambition meeting market realities, creating a film that stands out for its creativity even if it didn't become a blockbuster sensation. For fans of unique fantasy adventures, this movie remains a memorable gem that proves big-budget flair doesn't always guarantee big bucks, but it sure makes for an entertaining watch. If you're itching to dive into the whimsical world of the extraordinary adventures of Adele Blanc-Sec, you're in luck. Finding this film is as thrilling as one of Adele's daring escapades. Whether you're in the mood for a free streaming experience or willing to splurge for a premium viewing, there are options aplenty. For those who prefer to watch without spending a dime, Tubi offers the film for free, supported by ads. It's a great way to enjoy the adventure without opening your wallet. Alternatively, Plex provides the movie for free with ads, allowing you to stream it on various devices. And #X20. If you're leaning towards a rental or purchase, Amazon Prime Video has you covered. You can rent the film in HD for $2.99 or buy it for $8.99. The platform also offers the movie with English subtitles, making it accessible for a wider audience. And #X20. Apple TV is another option, where you can rent the film in HD for $3.99 or purchase it for $9.99. The movie is available in French with subtitles, providing an authentic viewing experience. And #X20. For those who prefer to own a physical copy, Amazon offers the film on Blu-ray and DVD, with prices starting around $13.45. This could be a great addition to your collection if you're a fan of Luc Besson's work or enjoy unique cinematic adventures. And #X20. Now, for the ultimate viewing experience. If you're aiming to immerse yourself fully in the film's rich visuals and intricate details, renting or purchasing the movie in HD is the way to go. Watching on a large screen with high-definition quality will allow you to appreciate the film's stunning cinematography and special effects. Pair it with a cozy setup and perhaps a themed snack or two, and you're all set for an unforgettable movie night.